to Hamlet Act 3. So what we have here is an opening scene full of manipulation and spying. And spying, be a spy, is going to be a common theme throughout this act. And the king says, "And can you by no drift of circumstance get from him why he puts on this confusion?" And he's talking to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. "Please explain his behavior to me." Why is the king so worried about his behavior? Because he wants to know if it's motivated from Hamlet knowing the truth that he killed his own brother and is married to his brother's wife. We're talking about a guilty king here. And Rosencrantz says he does confess he feels himself distracted, but from what cause he will by no means speak. And Guildenstern adds, "Nor do we find him forward to be sounded, but with a crafty madness keeps aloof." He's acting crazy. He won't talk and let us know. Especially when we would bring him on to some confession of his true state. "Hamlet, why are you acting like this? Why are you so depressed?" And then we have Rosencrantz announcing that there is going to be a play within a play. And that means that here we're watching a play of Shakespeare's, and then within that play itself, there are going to be other players, other actors who present a play. And we know that Hamlet has already taken over the role of playwright, who is the writer, director, and we'll see. Shakespeare loves to have his characters talk about theater while they're in theater in front of an audience. So in a sense, Shakespeare loves breaking the fourth wall. And what that means is that Aristotle talked about the idea of a suspended disbelief in order to watch a play. And Shakespeare keeps drawing attention back to the fact, this is a play. This is a play. Later on in Western culture, in the 20th century, people will truly smash that fourth wall. And playwrights will have actors come out into the audience and make the audience uncomfortable. And will remind them, you're only watching a play right now, by the way. Can you imagine watching your favorite TV show and it's interrupted in the middle of a dramatic moment with, "This is just a show"? So the king is playing the director, and he's telling Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to spy on his nephew/son, why he acts the way he acts, whether it's out of love for Ophelia, because Ophelia's been told, play hard to get, or out of suspicion about what the king has done. Everybody exits the stage, and then the king says, in line 50 of this act, "Oh, 'tis too true, how smart a lass that speech this give my conscience." So he actually has a conscience, and he knows he's guilty, okay? "The heartless cheek," meaning the whore's cheek, "beautified with plastering art, with rouge, is not more ugly to the thing that helps it than is my deed to my most painted word. Oh, heavy burden." And you know what I say? Let the king suffer. He murdered his brother and he married his wife. Prior to marrying his wife, they hatched a plan together. When? While they're having intercourse. I don't feel bad for him. So everybody exits and Hamlet remains. And here we have one of the most famous monologues, meaning one person speaking, in Shakespearean history. And Hamlet says, to be or not to be. He is suicidal. That's how upset he is. Wondering, should I live or not to live? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or is it nobler to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them? Is it better to live or is it better to die? To die, to sleep, no more. And by sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation, meaning a conclusion, devoutly to be wished. And then he's getting attracted to the idea, to die, to sleep. To sleep, perchance, to dream. Aye, there's the rub, for in the sleep of death, what dreams may come. So, if you do believe in the afterlife, and you believe that you're asleep, and you're already having nightmares in your real life, would that be so much peaceful rest? And so the king and Polonius have set up this chance meeting with Ophelia so they can spy and see if he's just heartbroken by Ophelia. And Ophelia's walking around with a prayer book, and Hamlet tells her, says in line 88, the fair Ophelia, nymph, which would be like saying good looker, or foxy. No, foxy is old. That's back in my day. Sweet thing, nymph, in thy orisons, in your prayers, be all my sins remembered. And Ophelia wants to find out because, Hamlet is acting a little crazy. But he's acting at this point. Not with his speech about whether to kill himself or not. And she says, good, my lord, how does your honor for this many a day? I humbly thank you. Well. How many times have you lied to somebody who asked you how you were doing and said, oh, I'm fine. Things are just fine. And that's what he's lying about. My lord, I have remembrances of yours that I have longed to redeliver. So I've got all these gifts that you've given me, and I want to give them back. No, this is always a bad sign in a relationship, right? I pray you now receive them. And Hamlet says, no, not I. I never gave you aught. I never gave you anything. My own lord, you know right well you did. And with them words of so sweet breath composed as made the things more rich. Their perfume lost, take these again. You flattered me when you gave me the gifts, but now their scent is sour. For to the noble mind, rich gifts wax poor when givers prove unkind. She's like, you've been mistreating me. No, up to this point, he hasn't mistreated Ophelia. Now in this act, he is going to mistreat her father. By accident, of course. And that's part of the tragic character of the play. And she gives them back to Hamlet, and he says, are you honest? And this is Shakespeare playing with two things. Are you being trustworthy? And honest also means, are you chaste? Are you still virgin? My lord? Are you fair? Hamlet asks, meaning, are you beautiful? What means your lordship? That if you be honest, so chaste and beautiful and fair, your honesty should admit no discourse to your beauty. Meaning that if you really have chastity, then you shouldn't be having intercourse. He's being a dick to her and accusing her of fooling around. So in line 109, Ophelia says, could beauty, my lord, have better commerce than with honesty? So could beauty have better intercourse with chastity? And Hamlet says, I truly, for the power of beauty will soon transform honesty from what it is to a bawd. And a bawd means a whore. Then the force of honesty can translate beauty into his likeness. This was sometime a paradox, but now the time gives it proof. He is just being such an ass. And he says, after calling her a whore, but I did love thee once. Indeed, my lord, you made me believe so, she says. And Hamlet says, you should not have believed me. For virtue cannot so inoculate our old stock, but we shall relish of it. I loved you not. How many of you have ever plucked off the petals of a flower? He loves me not. Or she loves me not. And here we have that here. I loved you not. And Ophelia says, I was the more deceived. And here we're going to have Hamlet tell her to go to a nunnery, which is go become a nun. Where if you're a nun, well, everyone's spy, you have to embrace chastity, no sex, poverty, being poor, and obedience. Those are the three vows. Chastity, poverty, and obedience. Get thee to a nunnery. And nuns, when they are set apart and take their holy orders, they're married to God. So the only intercourse they can have is with Jesus. Get thee to a nunnery. Why wouldst thou be a breeder of sinners? And Hamlet is referring to the fall of Adam and Eve and the idea of original sin. Why would you give birth to people who are already under original sin? Now, you know, I don't believe in original sin. But people today still do. It's why babies are baptized as infants. People believe that there was some sort of sinfulness that came from Adam and Eve that gets passed down. I am myself indifferent, honest, but yet I could accuse me of such things that it were better my mother had not borne me. I don't really care about chastity, he says, but sometimes I wish that I was never born. This is deep depression here. I'm very proud, revengeful, ambitious, with more offenses at my beck than I have thoughts to put them in, imagination to give them shape or time to act them in. What should such fellows as I do crawling between heaven and earth? We are errant knaves, all. All we are as human beings is stupid idiots. Believe none of us. Go thy ways to a nunnery. Where's your father? At home, my lord. And she knows full well that Polonius is lurking to check out this conversation. So she openly lies there. Why would she lie? Not out of not loving Hamlet, but because she is being obedient to her father. Which one has to ask, if you are going to be in a relationship, who will you be faithful to? Your partner? And I'm talking about a romantic relationship, okay? Are you going to be obedient to your father? Or are you going to be obedient to your parents? Well, she's chosen here. And Hamlet says, let the doors be shut upon him that he may play the fool nowhere but in his own house. Goodbye. Isn't he romantic? I'm blocking you now, and I hope your father rots in hell. Okay? And Ophelia looks up to the sky, and remember the globe did not have a roof on top of it. So she looks up to the stars and says, oh, help him, sweet heavens. And Hamlet goes on to say, if thou dost marry, I'll give thee this plague for thy dowry. And plague is a fancy way. Shakespeare once again is punning, but he's talking about venereal disease, sexually transmitted diseases. Can you imagine? My wedding gift to you is syphilis. Be thou as chaste as ice, so don't like having sex. As pure as snow, thou shalt not escape calumny. And then he says once again, get thee to a nunnery. Go, farewell. Or if thou wilt need marry, if you're going to get married, marry a fool. For wise men know well enough what monsters you make of them. And this is a reflection of the misogyny in Western culture where men blame their bad behavior on women. Women make monsters of men. Yeah, well, whatever. To a nunnery, go, and quickly too. Farewell. And Ophelia once again looks up at the stars and says, oh, heavenly powers, restore him, make him better. And Hamlet says, I have heard of your paintings too, well enough. God hath given you one face, and you make yourself another, meaning makeup, and also meaning deception. You jig, you amble, you lisp, and nickname God's creatures, and make your wantonness your ignorance. Go to, I'll know more on it. It hath made me mad, meaning it's making me crazy. I say we will have no more marriages. Those that are married already, all but one, shall live. The rest shall keep as they are. To a nunnery, go. And then Hamlet walks off the stage, and we hear this from Ophelia. Oh, what a noble mind is here overthrown. Oh, he is crazy. And in line 149, she says, an eye of ladies most deject and wretched, that sucked of the honey of his music vows, now see that noble and most sovereign reason, like sweet bells jangled, out of tune and harsh. That unmatched form, meaning that beautiful specimen of a man, and feature of blown youth, of full youth, blasted with ecstasy, meaning he is outside of himself. Not that he's having pleasure, but he is standing outside of himself. He is not himself. Woe is me to have seen what I have seen, see what I see. So she is not in a good frame of mind either. She can't believe she just got treated so harshly by Hamlet. And so then the king, who's been eavesdropping with Polonius, says, love, his affections do not that way tend. And then Polonius defends in line 170. Yet do I believe the origin and commencement of his grief sprung from neglected love. So Polonius, once he's made up his mind, he's like, I'm sure I'm right. It's just because he's been neglected. And then, oh, how now, Ophelia? How are you, Ophelia? You don't need to tell us what Lord Hamlet said. We heard it all. Because they had their ears out. Eavesdropping, eavesdropping, eavesdropping. And Polonius suggests, you may want to send him away to England. And the king says, it shall be so. Madness and great ones must not unwatched go. And the king is going to enlist Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to accompany Hamlet going to England, supposedly to get the tribute England's supposed to pay to Denmark. What the king's going to do is actually send Rosencrantz and Guildenstern with a letter that says, upon reception of this letter, kill Hamlet. Because once you killed your brother, I don't know, would it be that hard to kill your nephew? So then we have scene 2, and Hamlet becomes the director in this scene, and he is talking again to the actors, and Shakespeare is commenting on the status of good acting versus bad acting through Hamlet. Hamlet says to the actors, the players, speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounce it to you, tripling on the tongue, trippingly. But if you mouth it, as many of your players do, I have a leaf that town criers spoke my lines. So you need to actually get into the script. If you don't, I'm going to be upset. Nor do not saw the air too much with your hands. Hello! Woe is me! How could this have happened? Okay? Don't overact. Which is something a director would tell actors, right? And if you go to line 13, I guess, the first actor, the first player says, I warrant, Your Honor, I understand. We're not going to be bad actors in this play that you're setting up. And this play that, while everybody's spying on Hamlet, Hamlet's going to be spying on the king as well by setting up a play that acts out exactly what the king has done to his own father. Going on, Hamlet tells the actors, be not too tame neither, but let your own discretion be your tutor. Suit the action to the word to the action. And why? Because theater should mirror the world around us. So you can't have people strutting around being too overblown, or can you imagine a bad actor? To be or not to be? That's the question. I mean, it would make it funny, possibly, if you already knew the play, instead of to be or not to be. That's the question. Okay. And Hamlet goes on to say, and this is Shakespeare saying this in line 29, about how actors have imitated humanity abominably. This also brings up the idea that his uncle / father is an abominable person, a person without redemption. And then Hamlet also talks about how sometimes in a play, actors can speak freely. They can ad-lib. And he doesn't want that. He says in line 31, let those that play your clowns speak no more than is set down for them. Don't let them go out of their lines. And they promise to do just that. Horatio, who witnessed the ghost of his father, now comes into the scene, and Hamlet talks to him about how he can trust him. And he enlists him to spy on his uncle during the performance of this play within the play. See how he reacts when he sees somebody pouring poison into the king's ear. And Horatio promises to do what Hamlet asks. All right, so then we come to everybody gathering up to watch the play within a play. And the king says to Hamlet as he arrives, in line 81 maybe, how fares our cousin, Hamlet? Isn't this interesting? Because in the first scene, the king was calling him cousin and son. And now it's just cousin. And so, how are you, Hamlet? And Hamlet says, excellent in faith. Of the chameleon's dish, I eat the air. And there was a belief that chameleons only survive by eating air. Whatever. But you and I both know that chameleons can change their color. And Hamlet is accurately describing what he does. He's not doing excellent. He is changing himself for the moment he's in. And then Hamlet turns to Polonius and says, my lord, you played once in the university, you say? That did I, my lord, and I was accounted a good actor. What did you enact? I did enact Julius Caesar. I was killed in the Capitol. Brutus killed me. Now, this is a Shakespeare referencing classical works, classical history, I mean, and his play, advertising for himself, the tragedy of Julius Caesar. All right, so why not throw out a little advertisement for your brand? But also, Polonius played the character who got killed by his best friend. This is not exactly what's going to happen in this act, but Polonius is about to be killed by Hamlet. By accident, of course. So, Ophelia has arrived, and Hamlet says, in line 99, lady, shall I lie in your lap? Should I lay down in your lap? Or should I lie? Should I tell an untruth? And she says, no, my lord. And Hamlet says, because she takes it as lying to her, I mean my head upon your lap. And she says, I, my lord. So Hamlet lays on her lap. And then in other translations, not in this edition, in other translations, this is how the next line reads. Do you think I meant cunt re-matters? Shakespeare telling a dirty joke. Okay? It's not a word I use. But instead of saying country, oh, while he's snuggling in her lap, did you think I meant cunt? Re-matters? I think nothing, my lord. That's a fair thought, to lie between maids' legs. So that's a fair thought, to think about being between a young woman's thighs. Or, that's a fair thought, to lie about why you're between the legs. What is, my lord? What is, my lord? Oh, nothing. Okay. People love dirty jokes. And the audience would laugh at all of that. A fair thought it is to lie between a maiden's legs. And Ophelia's like, oh, you are so happy. You are merry, my lord. Who? I, my lord. And Hamlet replies, what should a man do but be merry? For look you how cheerfully my mother looks, and my father died within 2 hours. And he's exaggerating. But his mom is all happy and flirting with her now husband. Her husband, who is her first husband's brother. And Ophelia says, nay, it's been 2 months, my lord. And Hamlet says, really, so long? Nay, then, let the devil wear black, for I'll have a suit of sables. Okay, Hamlet is still wearing black as a signal of his grief, right? Oh heavens, died 2 months ago and not forgotten yet? Then there's hope. A great man's memory may outlive his life, maybe half a year. Okay, then we have what's called in the script the dumb players. And by dumb, it doesn't mean stupid. It means people who don't speak. And they enact the play that's going to happen without saying anything. And in line, what would it be, 122, Hamlet says, Mary, meaning, check this out. This is missing mal hecho. Mal hecho is a Spanish term. It's spelled incorrectly here. Mal hecho, a bad deed. It's a bad job. What does the book say? A sneaky misdeed. Well, anyway, it's a bad deed. It means mischief. And so now the characters, the actors will start to enter and actually perform the play. And Hamlet comments, as a literary critic, as Shakespeare, we shall know by this fellow, the players cannot keep counsel, they will tell it all. Will you tell us what this show meant, Ophelia asks? And Shakespeare says, I, or any show that you'll show him. Be not you ashamed to show. He'll not shame you. He'll not shame to tell you what it means. You are not. What does the book say? Yeah, you're being naughty. Don't be ashamed to show yourself off. He'll let you know. I'll mark the play. I'll watch the play, Ophelia says. And the prologue, the character playing prologue, explains what the play is about. And Hamlet says, is this a prologue or the posy of a ring? Now, the book says posy means, let's see, motto or inscription, but you all remember the childhood's rhyme, ring around the rosy, pocket full of posy, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. That is a nursery rhyme where children throughout the centuries are reenacting dying from the plague. And for Hamlet, the fact that his father has been murdered, and he's not quite sure yet, because he just saw a ghost, and the fact that his mother so quickly stopped grieving, because she never grieved at all, because it was the plan all along. Kill him, I'll marry you. He thinks that is a plague on the entire house. And Ophelia says, The prologue, "It was brief, my lord." And he says to her, with his head in her lap, "Just like a woman's love." He's very, very angry. And then the next actor comes in and talks about hymen. And if you don't know what a hymen is, you can look and see what the origins are, which is a goddess, a Greek goddess. It's also an anatomical feature. And the player queen, the actor who's playing the queen, comes in and talks about love and proof and what a good relationship would be. But she's in on the plot to kill her husband in this play within the play. And we have in line 161 the queen, the actor queen, saying that she would never get married if her husband dies. None wed the second, but who killed the first. The only person who gets married a second time is the one who killed the first husband. And Hamlet says, "Wormwood, wormwood." And the queen says, "The instances that second marriage move are base respects of thrift, but none of love. People only get married a second time, women do, only because they need the money. A second time, I kill my husband dead when second husband kisses me in bed." But this queen is protesting and saying, if I have my first husband killed, I'll kill my second one in bed. And then we have the queen and the king talking, the player, the actor king talking. And then the queen telling him, if, in line 204, "If once a widow, ever I be wife." And it's very interesting in Western culture and very sad to me. But the obligation of being a widow in Western culture that was held up, and it's been held up for more than 1,000 years, is that if your husband dies, you need to die too. And if you can't do that, then you need to put on black garb and a veil and die to life if you're too weak to kill yourself after your husband dies. That's some ridiculous stuff, but I'm telling you, more than 1,000 years of stories exemplify the widow as meaning that she needs to die. And then we have the counter narrative that talks about black widows, meaning women who, once their husbands die, they celebrate. Just like black widows, the spiders, they mate and they eat their male counterpart's head off. Obviously, that's part of misogyny. So the king goes to sleep. He gets poisoned. And Hamlet looks over at his mother while she's watching the king get poisoned and says, "How do you like this play?" in line 210. And she says, "The lady doth protest too much, methinks." Why? Because she is remarried, and she didn't remarry and then kill her second husband. And the king says, Hamlet says, "Oh, but she will keep her word." And the king looks at him and says, the real king, right? "Have you heard the argument? Is there no offense in it?" No, they're just joking. They jest. They poison and jest. No offense in the world. "Well, what do you call the play?" the king asks him. The mousetrap." "And what do mousetraps do?" Even though you can't hear the mice walking along the floor, then they're dead. This is Hamlet's mousetrap, set for his uncle slash father. This play is the image of a murder done in Vienna. Okay? And Ophelia looks at Hamlet and says, "You're as good as a chorus, my lord." Once again, Hamlet reminding people of the theatricality. You're watching a play. The chorus, as you can see in works like Oedipus, talks about the mindset and what's going on. The mindset of the actors, of the players, and the problems that are going on. And Hamlet is acting as that commentator that the chorus acts in classical theater. And Hamlet says, "I could interpret between you and your love if I could see the puppets dallying." Well, if I'm good at commenting on the play, I'll let you know that if only the puppets would have sex, then I could let you know how that goes. Dallying. And Ophelia says, "You are keen, my lord. You are keen." Meaning, you're being very cranky. But Hamlet keeps going with the sexual metaphor with her and says, "It would cost you a groaning to take off my edge. You'd have to make love sounds to take the edge off my sword I've got below my belt," is what he's talking about. And Ophelia's like, "Still better and worse. So you must take your husbands. Begin, murderer. Pox, leave thy damnable faces and begin. Come, the croaking raven doth bellow for revenge." So, right there, Hamlet is even accusing Ophelia and all women of being murderesses. And pox, I wish you venereal disease. And the ravens, they are symbols of death. You're all just syphilitic, or STI now, sexually transmitted infectious people who kill men. So then Lucianus pours the poison into the king's ear. And now we're going to see the real king truly agitated. He's going to get up. He's going to make a big scene. And leave. He does not want to. He's seen enough. Ophelia tells Hamlet, "Look, the king rises," in line 242. What? Is he affrighted with false fire? And the queen says, "How fares my lord?" Polonius is like, "Give over the play." And the king says, "Give me some light. Away!" Polonius is like, "Lights, lights, lights, lights." So the lights come up, right? And the king storms off the stage. He's not going to watch the reenactment of what he himself has done. And Hamlet says, "Why, let the stricken deer go weep. For some must watch, while some must sleep." So now Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come back on stage and let Hamlet know that, yeah, the king wants to talk to you, and so does your mom. And Hamlet, since they told him, look, the king has told us to watch over you, he doesn't trust them anymore. At all. And there's a scene that's kind of, we've just seen a person die on stage even though they're acting. And so now Hamlet tells Guildenstern to play the fife, which is a musical instrument. And he says, I cannot. I don't know how to do that. He's like, well, then why would you think you can play me? Why do you think you can fool me? Don't do it. I am not a music to be played. I'm not an instrument to be played. So in line 330, Hamlet says, why look you now how unworthy a thing you make of me? You would play upon me. You would seem to know my stops. You would pluck out the heart of my mystery. You would sound me from my lowest note to the top of my compass. And there is much music. Excellent voice in this little organ, meaning himself. Yet cannot you make it speak. So himself and the fife, Shakespeare once again using double entendres, double meanings, to say, you ask me how I'm feeling. I'm not going to sing for you. You can't play me. Do you think I'm easier to be played on than a pipe? You cannot play upon me. So everybody gets off stage, and if we go down to line 350, Hamlet says in a monologue, "'Tis now the very witching time of night," which is midnight, when churchyards yawn and hell itself breathes out contagion to this world. But now could I drink hot blood and do such bitter business as a day would quake to look on. Oh, wait a second, my mother's coming. Soft, now my mother. O heart, lose not thy nature. Let not ever the soul of Nero enter this firm bosom. Hamlet's reminding himself, even though you're mad at your mom, and remember what his dad Ghost said, don't kill your mother. But he does promise to, I will speak daggers to her. I'll use my words, but not a real dagger. So we go over to scene 3, which is very brief. And we have the king telling Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, you got to go to England to pick up some taxes for me because they owe us money, and you're going to take Hamlet with you. And they exit after line 26. And Polonius has told the king, I'm going to go hide out and listen to what Hamlet has to say to his mom. And that way we'll know what's going on with Hamlet. This is a mistake for Polonius, by the way, being a spy. Because Hamlet is going to think that it's his uncle slash king slash father who's behind the curtain. And then everybody leaves the stage, and we finally have the king confessing his guilt in line 37. Oh, or 38. Oh, my offense is rank. It smells to heaven. This is not a good smell. We're talking about rotting meat kind of smell. It has the primal eldest curse upon it. So remember Cain and Abel? What did Cain do to Abel? 2 brothers. One who grew crops, and the other who was a shepherd. Cain killed his brother because God didn't pick his sacrifice. It has the primal eldest curse upon it, a brother's murder. And he goes on and on to talk about repentance, and he gets out on his hands and knees, and he's praying to heaven to forgive him of his sin, except for that he recognizes that it's not true repentance if, even though you're saying, please forgive me for killing my brother, you're thinking about, what about Hamlet? What about this? What about that? It's not true repentance. Repentance would mean changing course and begging for forgiveness. Hamlet comes in while the king is alone, and he has the perfect moment to kill him. The perfect. And why won't Hamlet kill him? Because he wants to. Hamlet doesn't know what he's praying, and he doesn't want to kill him and have him go to heaven. He wants him to be sent straight to hell. And so he refrains. And here we have the king summarizing his repentance at the very end of the scene. My words fly up to heaven. My thoughts remain below, meaning right here. Words without thoughts never to heaven go. And that's Shakespeare using a poetic device there, a couplet, to emphasize that you can say everything you want to say, but if you don't mean it, it's ridiculous. And certainly a God would understand that. Now we're going to have a scene where Hamlet does use daggers on his mom, where he badmouths her and tells her that she's a horrible person. And in this scene, Polonius is going to go hide, and Hamlet comes in line 5 and says, Mother, 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 I'll warrant you, fear me not, withdraw, I hear him coming. So she tells Polonius to hide. Now, mother, what's the matter? Hamlet, thou hast thy father much offended, meaning his uncle / king / stepfather. Mother, you have my father much offended. Hamlet's talking about his own father, Hamlet Sr. Come, come, you answer with an idle tongue. Go, go, you question with a wicked tongue. Why, how now, Hamlet? What's the matter now, he says. He's being so rude. He's so angry. Have you forgot me? I'm your mama. Oh. No, by the rood, not so. You are the queen, your husband's brother's wife. And I would it were not so that you are my mother. Once again, a reprise of this idea. I wish I had never been born. I wish that you were not my mother. Nay, then I'll set those to you that can speak. Come, come, sit down, you shall not budge. You go not till I set up a glass. What? No, don't leave. Come sit down. I'm going to get a mirror so you can look at your hideous face. Meaning, look at your conscience and see what you have done. And then Hamlet hears a noise and he stabs into a curtain and he kills Polonius. And the queen looks at him and says, Oh me, what hast thou done? I don't know. Is it the king? Hamlet says in line 26. Oh, what a rash and bloody deed it is. A bloody deed almost as bad, good mother, as kill a king and marry his brother. As kill a king? Aye, lady, 'twas my word. And then Hamlet lifts the curtain and realizes he hasn't killed his king / uncle, stepfather. And then, because he thought it was the king, but he does call Polonius a fool. thou wretched, rash, intruding fool, farewell. I took thee for thy better. I thought that you were someone of higher status than you. And in line 38, the queen asks Hamlet, after she's just seen him kill Polonius, what have I done that thou darest wag thy tongue in noise so rude against me? And Hamlet says, well, what you've done is such an act that blurs the grace and blush of modesty, calls virtue hypocrite, takes off the rose from the fair forehead of an innocent love, and sets a blister there. Well, you've done something so bad that what you've done is given a virgin syphilis, a pox, a blister on the head. So he's going to go on bad-mouthing his mom, bad-mouthing and bad-mouthing. And then he's going to summarize or paraphrase, I guess is a better word, part of the biblical Gospels when Jesus says, you who have eyes see, if you have ears hear. In line 79, he says to his mom that she has eyes without feeling, feeling without sight, ears without hands or eyes, smelling sans at all. So here we have a little French thrown in. You can't even smell. Oh, shame! Where is thy blush? Meaning, why isn't your face turning red from embarrassment? And he accuses his mom of her reason pandering her will. In line 88, I guess it is. And reason panders will.
Self.
Self. And what he's talking about there is, hold on one second, my dog is out of here. Apparently, my daughter's dog Sophie is pissed off at the Queen too. Okay, but when he talks about reason panders will, the book says panders is, let's see, becomes subservient to. Pander actually means to whore. And we're talking about in Western culture, in Christian culture, the soul is made up of three. Excuse me. Quiet! Quiet! All right, I'm back because we're almost at the end, and I don't want to stop. There are three powers of that make up the soul: reason, free will, and memory. And if reason whores out, which is what pander means, whores free will, then you get a destruction of the soul. And that's what Shakespeare is referencing right here. And then Hamlet talks to her about how, look, tonight when you go to bed with that man, don't make love above the piss pot. And, you know, you hear people say, I didn't even have a pot to piss in. No, this was a normal thing. There was no indoor plumbing back in Elizabethan times. And so what you had was a pot that if you woke up at night and you need to piss, you pissed in it. If you woke up at night and you need to shit, you pissed in it. And then you tucked it back under your bed. And so Hamlet portrays an image of her corruption of making love to his uncle, to his father's killer, with the smell of shit and piss coming up underneath them. And that is in line 93. Nay, but to live in the rank sweat of an enseamed bed. And it's very funny. The book says that that means greasy. I think it might be a misspelling. An enseamed bed. A bed with semen all over it. Stewed in corruption, honeying, and making love over the nasty sty. And his mom says, "No more, sweet Hamlet, because your words are like daggers," which is what he said he would do, that enter my ear. And then he calls her husband, current husband, a murderer and a villain. And all of a sudden, as he is berating his mother, his father's ghost shows back up on stage. And Hamlet talks to the ghost, and his mom thinks he's crazy because she can't see the ghost. This is a theatrical contrivance, right? But how could you not talk to your own father's ghost, especially when your father has said he was murdered? So Hamlet says in line 105, "What would your gracious figure? What do you want from me?" And the ghost does not speak. And the queen says, "Alas, he is mad." Meaning, see, I knew Hamlet was crazy. And the ghost speaks to Hamlet in line 110. "Do not forget, this visitation is but to whet thy almost blunted purpose. But look, amazement on thy mother sits. O step between her and her fighting soul. Conceit and weakest body's strongest works. Speak to her, Hamlet." Basically, his father's ghost, spirit, soul, comes back and says, "Be nice to your mother." And Hamlet looks at her and says, "How is it with you, lady?" And she says, "How is it with you? That you do bend your eye on vacancy and with incorporeal air and do hold discourse? Why are you asking me how I'm doing? You're talking to nothing." And Hamlet, because he's seen his father, he's like, "Really? You didn't see him? You didn't see him?" And she says in line 133, "Nothing at all. Yet all that is I see." I didn't see anything. I just saw you acting crazy. And Hamlet says, "Well, look, there, look how it steals away." Because the ghost is leaving the stage. "My father in his habit, in his clothing, just the way he looked when he lived. Look where he goes even now, out the portal, out the door." And the ghost is gone, and she says, "This is just the coinage of your brain. You're just sick in the brain." But the problem here is that Hamlet is not just sick in the brain. He is, because he's grieving his father. But he is sick in his heart as well. For good reason. And yet, his mom is going to tell him in line 156 that he's broken her heart. Hamlet himself has. "Oh, Hamlet, thou hast cleft my heart in twain," meaning you've cut my heart in half with what you've said. And Hamlet looks at her and says, "Well, then throw out the worst part of it and live the pure with the other half." And don't have sex with my uncle tonight. In line 165, refrain tonight, and that shall lend a kind of easiness to the next night when you have abstinence, and the next more easy. And basically you can build a habit out of not having sex with my uncle. And then he points at Polonius's dead body and says, I do repent, but heaven has pleased it so. Well, I am sorry about killing Polonius, but that's destiny. Can you imagine? And Hamlet is going to exit the stage in a minute, dragging Polonius' body off to take care of it and dispose of it. Can you imagine you're in love with somebody and you kill that person's father? Oops. That's a big oops. So Hamlet says in line 177, so again, good night. And the next line, I must be cruel only to be kind. And you can go listen to it. There was a pop song, you gotta be cruel to be kind, baby. I think that's from about 30 years ago. It was a big hit. It reminds me of the idea in Vietnam, well, sometimes you have to burn down a village to save it. I don't believe this, okay? But Hamlet, now he's killed Polonius, accidentally. He's confronted his mom about her murderous intent and her participation in the murder of his own father, about her lust, about her being a terrible person. And now, what does he have to lose? The whole kingdom and his life, but he's suicidal. Okay? And the queen asks him in line 180, what shall I do? Well, not by this no means that I bid you do. Let the bloat king tempt you again to bed, and pinch on his wanton cheek, call you his mouth, let him pinch you on your cheek, and call you his mouse, and let him for a pair of reechy kisses, or paddling in your neck with his damned fingers, make you to ravel all this matter out, that I essentially am not in madness, but mad by craft. So while you're having sex with my uncle tonight, know this. I'm not crazy. I am acting crazy. And the queen is all being dramatic. In 196, be thou assured, if words be made of breath and breath of life, I have no life to breathe what thou hast said to me. I'm not going to talk about any of this with him. And Hamlet looks at him and says, so I must to England? You know that? Oh, yeah, I had forgotten about that. Alack, I had forgot. It's concluded on, yes, you're going to England. And Hamlet says, look, there are letters that are sealed, and I don't trust my friends because they are adders fanged, meaning they're just snakes with teeth, with fangs. In line 212, he says, Mother, good night. Indeed, and he looks down at Polonius' body, this counselor is now most still, most secret, and most grave. Grave being a play on words. Most serious, but also, well, he's getting ready to go in the grave, you know. Who was in life a fool, and who, talking about Polonius, a foolish, prating knave. A man who was an idiot, who talked too much. Come, sir, and he's dragging Polonius' body by the arm, right? Or the leg, it depends on the director. Come, sir, to draw toward an end with you. Ha, good night, Mom. And thus, ends the third act of Hamlet, with him angry with his mom, with him upset with the woman he's in love with, Ophelia, with him killing Ophelia's father, with him seeing how guilty his uncle reacted to the play that he put on. And he is the one who is directing the show at the moment. Thank you. I look forward to talking to you about Act 4.